Well, with more on the crime package and bail reforms introduced today, we're now joined by the Justice Minister and the Attorney General of Canada, Sean Fraser. Minister, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So listen, let's begin with what we just heard from Pierre Poilievre, because he essentially criticizes this bill for leaving in place, leaving untouched this principle of restraint, and essentially that's the legal principle that says that you should use the least severe measure to deal and to figure out things like releasing an accused or sentencing. Why did you not address that principle and do away with it altogether?
Well, first, I think it is essential to point out what this bill does do. It makes it harder for people to be released in the community if they are a violent repeat offender, and if you've committed a serious crime, you're going to face stiffer penalties as a result of the law we put in place. What Mr. Poilievre's point completely fails to understand is that if you were to repeal a section of the code that mentioned the principle of restraint, it wouldn't necessarily make a difference, because that principle comes from the Supreme Court of Canada, not initially from the criminal code. If we want to have an impact on how that principle is interpreted, we should actually clarify what it means in the code. So we've taken the approach of actually explaining that the principle of restraint is not some get out of jail free card. Instead, it's going to mandate that someone actually be detained if the court is not satisfied that they can protect public safety if the person is released. This is a more responsible approach, and frankly, it reflects a lot of the feedback that we've heard from law enforcement, from provinces, both of whom have endorsed this bill after it's become public earlier today.
Okay, and what you are leaning in on is this reverse onus for one, which essentially takes away from the Crown the obligation to prove why a person should not get bail, puts it on the accused to make the arguments as to why they deserve bail. At the end of the day, will that, do you believe, keep more people in custody, in particular repeat and violent offenders?
It will have an impact, we expect, as a result of the change to the rule, because it's not just placing the burden on the accused who may be a repeat violent offender to explain why they should be released. It's also, we've accepted a recommendation, worked very closely with my counterpart in Ontario, Attorney General Doug Downey, to introduce an additional factor that would require that person actually present credible information that clearly demonstrates how the public safety imperative could be protected if they are released. We do anticipate this is going to make it more difficult for violent repeat offenders to be released into community, certainly.
Okay, now part of this is to prove to the Canadian public, on behalf of your government, that you are serious about crime, serious about making Canadian streets safe again. So if you're already expanding reverse onus to things like violent auto theft, repeat violent offenders, organized retail theft, human trafficking, sexual assault, and extortion involving violence, why not just apply reverse onus on everything across the board?
Well, we wanted to start with some of the most serious offenses, and there are some reverse onuses that pre-existed this particular bill that exists within the criminal code. But we wanted to target the offenses that we heard were the biggest priority items for our partners who either work within the system or who have a responsibility to manage the system. Law enforcement has been pretty clear with us that we needed to embrace reverse onuses for certain kinds of the offenses that you've seen. Provincial governments, who are closer to the administration of justice given their responsibility for bail hearings, the administration of provincial courts, etc., have asked specifically for certain of these offenses to be included. When the people who work in the system and who manage the system tell you there are changes that need to be made to promote public safety, we would do well to listen to them. This has been one of the most collaborative exercises that I've been involved with in 10 years in politics, and I believe that level of collaboration has strengthened the final product that we've tabled in the House earlier today.
Okay, you use the word collaboration, and in the release that was given out by your ministry, you note the fact that these changes to the criminal code will only really be effective if provincial and territorial jurisdictions, governments do their part. What are you referencing there? Like a sufficient number of provincial judges, enough jails and holding cells in the provinces and territories? What exactly do you mean by that?
So let me start by saying this is not some exercise in pointing fingers. The provinces get it. They have been on this. They are great partners to work with. In the meeting that we had in Alberta last week with every province's justice and public safety ministers, really signaled to me that we all want to pull in the same direction and have a Team Canada approach. What I mean when I refer to the provinces needing to do their part as well reflects the breakdown of responsibilities in terms of who has the responsibility to manage the text of the criminal code, which is clearly a federal responsibility, and who has the responsibility responsibility for the administration of justice, which typically falls to the provinces. When you look to different regions of Canada, the challenges are not necessarily identical. In some provinces, there are challenges with detention capacity. In others, there are challenges with the shortage or level of training of decision makers. In other provinces, community policing is implemented at variable levels. One of the things that this entire exercise has really brought to the fore is the opportunity to collaborate not just between federal governments and provincial governments, but to have all of us work together to share best practices, to share data, to improve the collection of data, and to ensure that we understand what measures are actually having an impact, whether it's the text of the code or the resources that allow provinces to adequately implement the text of the code. This has to be a collaborative effort. The entire system was designed that way, and if we're going to see success follow the tabling of the legislation today, we have to make sure that other levels of government properly equip the system that will allow these measures to take hold and have a positive impact on public safety.
Are they ready to play their part? Because if it takes two to tango, you've essentially said we've set the law, we're now going to see how well it's implemented.
So provinces have been doing different things to strengthen their ability to manage the bail system in recent months. Again, different provinces have taken different approaches. It's clear that they all want to do something here. This is going to demand continued and unrelenting focus on adequately resourcing the system if they want to see results from the changes that we made today in terms of how it impacts communities. Typically, when you have changes, you see the results improve over a period of time. As you have new laws in effect, you understand the implications of those laws, and we'll need to continue to iterate, potentially at a federal level with future amendments to the criminal code. We have more coming this fall, but also at a provincial level to ensure that they can manage and shift those resources appropriately to respond to different pressure points in the system.
And what type of support is your government willing to give to the provinces and territories to make sure they can do that? And I wonder, is that information? Is that education? Is that funding?
So it started with responding to the feedback that they participate in the process of identifying potential changes to the criminal code. Today, I think will be a reflection of that extraordinary collaborative effort that we engaged on provinces and with law enforcement to develop. What comes next will be the source of much discussion between our counterparts. Having met with my counterparts last week in Alberta, it's very clear that there is a joint desire to work on some sort of a framework to improve community safety more broadly. There are areas of federal jurisdiction that are at play. We want to start there. We want to make sure we clean up our own backyard before we start telling everybody else what they need to do. We started today with the criminal code reforms. There are ongoing conversations about the complement of judges that engages federal responsibilities. There may be areas where we can help inspire collaboration as between provinces or as between the federal and provincial governments. But there's no question, this is not purely for the federal government to solve. It's for us to be a good partner and to work with the provinces to understand what their needs are, but it's also for provinces to make sure that they adequately resource the system that they have the responsibility to manage. And we're going to continue to be a good partner.
So more to come.
Obviously, and always.
Sean Fraser, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.